Are you ready? Hey, Aaron, how are you doing? And welcome everybody to the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus show live. We want to welcome you here, but we always welcome you in first with a little bit of good music. That's right. Could you be love? We're ready to get you going here. There's a little something. It's a little rough, but we got it to you real quick just to keep you going. And Aaron, whoa, it's been a fantastic week. And what a weekend. A lot got done. I just want to say first, I got a shout out to my wife. It's her birthday coming up in a couple of days. She's been having a birthday week all week. We just like to keep it light and having fun here because this show is about people. It's not about being all formal and, having a stiff. For us, we'd all have on ties and a lot of production money and everything else. We are here to give you facts. And the main fact that we want to tell y'all is we love you and we want you to vote. And protect your vote. And as small business caucus members, we want you to be able to make money so that you can take care of yourself and your family and the things that you believe in. Can I get an amen to that, Aaron?
Listen, 100%. I'm here for it.
Are you here for it? We are here for it. And listen, I introduced myself, but I want you all to know who's that? Who's the other person from down south there, from Baton Rouge? Why don't you introduce yourself, Aaron?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I am Erin Porche. I am the establishing chair of the Louisiana Democratic Small Business Caucus. And we are just really excited about what we are putting together for the state of Louisiana. Mark has been tremendous in, just really helping us to get things up and running. And we are here for small business. We want to help close the gaps for minority business owners and ensure that we are equipped and empowered with the information and we are able to build wealth. So I'm just really excited about, the show that we have tonight and everything that we have to come in the state of Louisiana for the Democratic Small Business Caucus.
Yes, absolutely. Aaron, I want to say what I love to say. One of the things I love to say is my back is against the wall, but my wall's not back there right now. It's a little further. My back today is against the bookshelf, but it is against the wall because we've got nowhere to go except for forward. And I want to let you know you need to be in contact with us. Add us on Twitter, VADSBC.org, or, get us on Facebook. We're out there. Just type in VADSBC. And Twitter is just VADSBC. It's all the same thing. And you can get to us. The same thing on LinkedIn. So come on and join the organization. If nothing else, get the information that we're trying to provide. We are just out here, regular people just like you and me, just trying to make it. And just trying to make sure we're keeping our families safe, send our kids to school, and just, own some property so that we can pass on a little legacy wealth to these small businesses. But more importantly, we are here to keep our vote. And listen, we about to act up if this don't happen because we are on it, making sure that you are calling your congressman. You need to be doing that. You need to be telling them about HR 1. And HR 4. And let me tell you what those are. When we talk about HR 1 and HR 4, we're talking about the John Lewis Act for one of them, okay? Let's talk about that a little bit first with HR 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Yes, we are out here doing it again because I want you all to know that when you're out there trying to protect the vote, you're out there doing what you need to do. It's not a one and done type thing. It's a one and stay vigilant type thing. It's a one and get out there and call your congressman. Get out there and do whatever we need to do because in order to make things happen for us in this country, we need to have a vote in a democratic society. Having that vote is all important. And if we got to get out there again, we've done it before. We've braved bullets, dogs, water hoses, but whatever we need to do, we need to get out there and let them know that we are here for it. We are here to get out there and do some civil protesting and disobedience, being civilly disobedient, doing whatever we need to do. But more importantly, we want to organize ourselves and make sure people can do what they need to do to make sure that we maintain the right to vote as Americans in this country, because that's what our constitutional democracy is all about. It's about having the right to vote, to choose your leadership, and to decide what we want to do with the resources and things that we have all created here in this country, this beautiful country we call the United States of America. Can I get an amen to that? Of course, Aaron, get off mute. Give me that amen. You're on mute. I can't hear you. You're still on mute.
Yes, I am on mute.
We are serious. This has got to happen.
Y'all,
I'm banging on my desk.
He's passionate. Now I'm just saying, you're radical today. You're serious. You're passionate about just raising awareness and getting this information out. And I love it. I think more people need to hear it. So, I'm here for it. HR4 and HR1. We want to ensure that people know what is at stake and understand their role in voting, right? So carry on.
Well, HR4 kind of puts everything back to where it should have been since 1965, but HR1 kind of opens things up even more so and ensures that all Americans have a right to vote. And Aaron, if you throw HR1 back up there again on the screen for people, so people need to understand really what that does. This bill right here expands access to voting for people that are allowed to vote. Automatic same-day voter registration nationwide, 2 weeks of early voting for all voters, purging people from voting rolls, restores full protections of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which was decimated by the Supreme Court in 2013. These things are important. We'd also finance reforms like banning foreign money loopholes, how foreign money gets into our election system, election security, cybersecurity, you've heard that word before, and other things that have to do with keeping election security, to prevent gerrymandering so the politicians don't pick the voters pick the politicians, right? That's how it's supposed to go. So what we have to do right now is to finish what we were doing before. And that last item was just basically the auditing of votes. Kind of move that on me real quick, Aaron. I think that, what was that last one? Give that screen back to me one more time. All those points are important. The last piece of this was grants to help states replace voting machines so they have the resources to do it, and processes for auditing and securing election results based upon all of these things. You can go ahead and take that down, Aaron. But what I wanted to talk to people about, Al, definitely. Our guest is going to be here tonight. He's a little slow, but he's not slow getting here. I'm not done talking, doggone it. When I get done talking, I will invite on the guest. So all I'm saying is these things are important. I'm going to get back to this voting piece because I want people to call their congressperson. I want them to get out there in them streets and in the suites and make sure that those voting rights are secured. And how you can do that is by being vigilant about securing and making sure that the voting rights, which we have fought so hard for since the founding of this country, through many wars, through civil protests, through beating back Nazis, to fighting all kind of wars. We've been here since the beginning, and we can't have this. These things targeting Americans by what they look like or where they might be from. That's not how it works. In America, if you are a citizen and you have the right to vote, it should be unabridged. People shouldn't be making you jump through hoops, counting the number of bubbles on a bar of soap, or making you quote the Constitution word for word, or just any silly ass thing they could think of. It's ridiculous, and we're not having it. And we're going to do whatever it is we need to do to make sure that this happens, because we are not, what do you call, partial American citizens? No, we're full American citizens, every single one of us. And it's our job to make sure that we fight to maintain those sort of things that we need to do here in this country. And I'm telling you, get out there, do what you need to do. And if you need some help, give us a call. But you know how to get to us. You know, you can reach us on Facebook. You can reach us on LinkedIn. You can reach us on Twitter. You can go to our website. We've got all of our information down there for you. We want to make sure that you understand that if there's anything that you need to make sure that you know that you need to get out there and pressure your Congress people and get out there and work with various different organizations who are doing the same thing to make sure that we are securing the vote for all Americans. All Americans, not just Democrats or Republicans or independents. I said all Americans. All Americans have a right to vote. And one of the things that we need to make sure that we do is make sure that we're out there supporting H.R. 1 and H.R. 4. That is our call to action. And that call to action is important because the call to action that we want to leave you with here today is call your congressman. Make sure you're telling them you are in support of H.R. 1. Call your congressman. Make sure you tell them that you are in support of H.R. 4, which is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And again, H.R. 1 is the For the People's Act. We are supporting these things. These things are foundational for people being able to have their rights here in the United States. And then we can start moving on down because there's a lot of other stuff we got to attend to, but that we have to attend to. That's a must all over the country before we get to anything else. That's foundational. The number one thing that needs to get done is securing the right to vote. So call to action, call your congressman, whoever he is, or your congresswoman, whoever she is. Make sure that you're talking to your friends and neighbors and telling them about H.R. 1 and H.R. 4. And making sure that they understand that this is something that's just not going to go away. This is something that we have to be vigilant about because the folks who are against democracy, the folks who are against people having their full rights, they're not sleeping and they're not going to stop. They're not going to go away. So I'm telling you, you need to make sure that you're out there doing that for yourself, your children, your family, your community, your country. Ensure the right to unabridged voting here in the United States. Glad to say a little bit about that. It always makes me feel better. Now I'm ready to stretch, Aaron, because we're ready to get started. You know what we're ready to get started on? Oop, watch that thing. I'm stretching out here, but we're ready to get started with the next part of the show here. And it's a show because we want to keep it fun. We want to keep it light. And I don't know why my lights are going on and off like that. Do you see the lights going in and out, Aaron? I don't know what's going on with that. But anyway, I saw some lights going on and off. But we are ready to get started with the next part and talk a little bit about Virginia. But before I go into Virginia, Aaron, I want you to come back on the screen and tell us a little bit about what's happening down south. Tell me a little bit what's happening, or if you have anything to add about H.R. 1 and H.R. 4. You got anything to add? Okay, well, I got to see your face on the screen. I can't see you. Where you at? Where you at, Aaron? Because pretty soon we got to bring in our guest. So there you go. I'm glad to see that you're back. Okay, Aaron, good to have you back. So we're going to talk a little bit about, you don't have anything to add on H.R. 1 and H.R. 4, nothing from Louisiana. You don't tell me anything about that. How are y'all doing down there?
We good in the South.
You good?
Look, we masked up and we're good in the South.
Baton Rouge, all is going well in Baton Rouge?
All is going well, Mark.
Okay. You know, I'm just going to go right into Virginia politics. I also see we've got back in our green room waiting is a very good guest who's been involved in a lot of politics and a lot of small business activities around the country and as well as internationally. It really comes from just a great legacy of folks being involved in business and politics in this country. So we're going to bring him on pretty soon, but we've advertised it. We've talked a little bit about it, but we're about to do that drum roll, about to bring him in, but not just yet. I want to tell you one more thing about Virginia. Okay, in Virginia, we have some elections coming up this year, don't we, Aaron?
Yes.
I know you're in Louisiana, but Virginia, which we have turned blue,
Which is my home.
Say that again.
I said, which Virginia is my home away from home.
Yes, it is. Because you lived in this area for a long time before moving back down south. I love the South. I love being down south. I miss my Louisiana Creole, Cajun food and all the good stuff you get out of New Orleans and down there, and Plaquemines Parish, where my family's from down there. But I'm hoping to get down there now that the weather has, or things kind of calm down a little bit with this COVID stuff, but we still got to keep that mask on.
Hey, Mark, we have a question.
What's that?
Question in regards to HR 1 and HR 4. If I'm in a blue state and a blue congressional district, what can I do to push for HR 1 and HR 4?
If you are in a blue state and if you're in a blue congressional district and you want to make sure that your congressperson, when I say congressperson, male or female, representative or senator on the federal level, you need to tell them, I don't care if they've already expressed the fact that they are for HR 1 and for HR 4. They still need to understand they're being watched. I mean, you're being watched means when you send an email and you make a call, you're making it very clear. We want you to do this. We need you to get it done. Give them a deadline. Don't let it hang out there. This has got to get done. There's no pussyfooting around this issue at all. What you have to do is tell your congressman in a blue district, in a blue state, that they need to get this done. Period. This is your priority. Once they get this done, we can talk about everything else. But this, if I can't vote, what else can I do? Tell me, what can I do in this country if I can't vote? What does that mean? Like back to the suffrage days when women couldn't vote, African Americans couldn't vote. If you didn't own land, you couldn't vote. I mean, just because they put things in place that don't specifically say you can't vote, but if everything they do makes the outcome you can't vote or harder to vote, then they've accomplished you can't vote without them actually telling you can't vote, right? I'm talking to you, Aaron. You're the only one else on the screen. You cannot vote, Aaron. You're not on mute. So this is right. That's what the person needs to do. Whoever is calling in or asking us questions on the text, they need to keep the pedal to the metal on this issue. Period. I don't know how to be more explicit. What do you got to say, Aaron?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I just want people to know Aaron usually has so much more to say. I don't know. What are you doing? What are you eating? Fritos or eating some Cheetos or something over there behind when the screen's not on? Because you're not saying much, Aaron. I need you talking to me. I need that feedback. Well, I just want to get people excited about this because, I was listening today to some very interesting things. I listened to a couple different radio shows. I mean, I'll get in the MSNBC, I'll get in some Sirius XM, and I listen to a little bit of one of my favorite stations there is the Sirius XM Urban View. And they have just a lot of different political hosts. And I listen to those hosts on MSNBC, and they're bringing different stuff up. So I like to try to stay as much as I can abreast of people calling in, and why I like listening to the talk shows with people calling in, because you don't just get to see talking heads like we're trying to be right now. People actually call in and they talk and they give their opinions, which is a good thing. So, and we also listen to the folks there that get paid to give their opinions. So you get a mixture of stuff along with just talking to your friends and neighbors. And then you really get a good feel for how people feel about this. And how they really feel about this is they want their right to vote. They are upset about this. And they are out there in those streets saying, hey, this has got to get done. This is not something that we want to play around with. This is not something that, we want politicians or either on either side of the fence, they're messing around with this. And we'd like to get the administration to get behind this, do what needs to get done to make sure that this bill gets passed and it gets to the president's desk for him to sign. And then we have to still stay on top of it. So, but let me get back to the Virginia elections. Terry McAuliffe, he's running for governor of Virginia. That election is coming up. Hey, Aaron, give me that screen for a second so I could tell people again about the elections that are getting ready to happen in November. These are very important elections in Virginia, and this is a Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus. So I want to kind of let folks know what they can do to support the various different folks who are on the ballot. You have the governor, you have the lieutenant governor who's running as Hala Ayala, and you also have Mark Herron, who's running for the Attorney General. And like I said, you had Terry McAuliffe, who's running for governor, and then you also have some House of Delegate seats that are up. And by locality, there's various different local elections. So all those things are happening. So get out there to your websites, and there's a website on a little crawl at the bottom of the screen that'll tell you who's running in Virginia, how you cast your vote, and if you're not registered, how you're able actually to register to vote. So, and one of the things that you want to know is when all this information is available to you to do. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I think I've spent enough time on it. But what I want to do is have a little interaction and a little talking with our guests. So I'm going to take the time now to do a little introduction of our guests because I'm at that 22 minutes in. And I want to make sure we've got more than a half hour to talk to a really fantastic guest. So Aaron, give me that other screen so I could introduce this gentleman and give him all his what he deserves to really get as we start to talk to him. He's getting ready to come up in a minute. Aaron, you want to switch screens for me? I'm waiting. I'm patient. Oh, you got to share a screen. That's right. You have to share a screen, and I want the rest of the folks who are out there to see who we're talking about. And I want to be able to talk a little bit about J. Russell Fugett. Fantastic. There we go. J. Russell Fugett. He's with the Joomla Network, where he is the Chief Encouragement Officer. J. Russell Fugett is also a strategic, he does strategic consulting and a knowledge network with a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he really comes from a fantastic family with a fantastic background that is just extremely interesting politically and from a small business perspective, both here in this country and internationally. So we're hoping that we can get him to talk to us a little bit about all the fantastic stuff that Russell does and that the legacy of which he is a part of. And he's also a part of the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus, has helped us in the past. So without further ado, I want to bring him on with a big screen. And put your hands together, folks, because it's about to happen. We've got one of the best folks I know out here. I've known him for a long time. I'm excited to talk to J. Russell Fugett. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on this evening.
I'm glad to have you here. Talk to us, Russell. I've given you the big. I haven't done you really justice because there's a lot you have to say. We only giving you about a half an hour to talk to us. But why don't you start off? You can address talking anything you want to talk about it, voting issues, what's happening in Virginia, what it is that your company does, the legacy of your family. I'm just going to open it up to you and let you just sort of give it to us any way you'd like.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to connect with Erin backstage. And I was telling her I have a 4-year-old running around this house somewhere who might interrupt me at any moment, but hopefully my wife will return before that happens. But I make no guarantees that she won't walk in back right over here behind me. But
we'd love to have her on the show.
She's been on before. She might have something to say, let me tell you. So I just, I came in about 10 minutes ago, and I don't know if Aaron, I don't think you revealed, I was the one that asked that question. Living in a blue state like Maryland and wearing a blue shirt, of course, today, coincidentally, and certainly being in a very long term blue congressional district. that for the most part consists of the northern part of Prince George's County, Maryland, which a lot of people know is one of the wealthiest, predominantly black jurisdictions in the country, if not the wealthiest. I think it goes back and forth with another county in the greater Atlanta area, if I'm not mistaken. What do we do? And it's just been so difficult. I've had to just tamp down on my news consumption because the talking heads of like every day is just the same drumbeat about how crazy Fox News is and how crazy certain folks are who don't want to get the vaccine and all the stuff, the lies flying around, and how we're never going to get voting rights and how we're never going to get infrastructure and so many things. It's just been very challenging just for my own mental space to remain encouraged to consuming so much of this news. But nonetheless, I remain encouraged and have no choice but to be. Of course, Cornell West always says I'm not optimistic, but I have hope. And so we must remain hopeful in spite of the obstacles that we see. And so certainly it's good to agitate and to be reminded that even if our congressperson is, for the issue that we support, that we still have a unique opportunity to lobby them as a citizen, just as a citizen, to try to make sure our voices are heard. And my Congressman Anthony Brown, the former Lieutenant Governor of the state of Maryland, I've had chances to meet him in the past, and he does an excellent job of having multiple community events and being very visible here. Which, of course, being very local to DC is not hard, but nonetheless, he does a good job of it, and is very accessible and very available. So I appreciate his leadership, both as the former Lieutenant Governor and now as my Congressperson here in the state of Maryland. But there's just so much work to be done. Of course, all eyes are going to be on Virginia, I'm sure, this fall to see how Terry McAuliffe does. Our friend, Mr. McAuliffe, I know has been a friendly with my family in the past, and there's a great picture of my father and him down in Richmond at the NFL Washington football team training camp from when he ran previously, which I guess was 8 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. There's a great picture I have, and I had a chance to meet him. I had met him previously, and of course, I was with you. Was it the Kennedy? What was the dinner we went to, Mark, where I had a chance to see Terry?
The Kennedy King dinner.
Kennedy King dinner, yeah, where I had a chance to see. I think it was still then Governor McAuliffe, if I'm not mistaken. I might be getting my years mixed up. I know we said we've known each other for a while.
It's been a lot of years.
I'm just looking forward to seeing what happens in Virginia this year, and hope that it portends for good things to happen for Democrats in 2022.
Absolutely, because we need to make sure we keep Virginia. We can't afford to lose anything in Virginia,
right,
on a federal level or either on a state level, or even on a local level.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we need to continue to build those numbers so things can get a little easier for Democrats to be able to get this legislation passed for H.R. 1 and H.R. 4. I won't even get into the rest of the legislation. We'll say, well, we can talk about it if you want to, but there's other priority legislation that has to deal with, the Police Reform Act, with the George Floyd Act, and as well as Infrastructure 1, Infrastructure 2, everything that's happening around the Small Business American Rescue Plan, and everything that's happening. There's just a lot.
Yeah.
So I try, like what you said earlier, I try to keep all that negativity out of my head.
Right.
I mean, I listen to the news, but I make sure that I'm listening to news when they're talking about how you get things done. I don't like to admire the problem. I like call to action and what it is that you actually are going to do.
Right.
Because everybody knows the problems. Let me turn it back over to you.
Well, I certainly, on that very end, I try to read more of the news and watch more of the news, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so, certainly, one thing I've come to admire is action, and Representative Cori Bush from St. Louis, I believe, sleeping outside for 4 nights.
Absolutely.
The Biden administration, CDC, was able to act to suspend, at least for 80% of the counties, this eviction, to extend rather the eviction moratorium. So that's the kind of action and leadership that we need. And of course, it was good to see our Democratic leadership also, Miss Nancy, Speaker Pelosi, and Leader Schumer step up and get that work done behind the scenes. I know sometimes I'm one of the ones, I'm guilty of saying I want these baby boomers to step aside, but I know that our leadership knows how to get things done. And so while there might not always be agreement within our party as to how that should happen or when it should happen or what should be our priorities, we do have great leadership that does know how to get things done. And so again, I'm hopeful. Some days I'm more optimistic than others, but I'm certainly hopeful as to what the next 12 months really can be. Because really all we're going to have is maybe 12 months. That might be being generous. until it's going to be election season, and nothing's going to get done until we see what happens during the midterms in November of 2022. So I'm really looking forward to see how this fall and the winter and into the spring unfolds in Washington, and again, of course, in Virginia as well with this upcoming election.
Well, but I'll tell you one thing about I'm telling people all the time, we cannot wait till 2022. What is being foreshadowed now is going to determine, and I'm not saying you're saying this, Russell, I know that's not what you're saying, what's going to happen in 2022. Because 2022, it just, the stuff you want just isn't going to suddenly appear in 2022.
Right.
What's going to happen? What you want done in 2022 is what you get done in 2021, and what you want done in 2024 is what you get done in 2022.
Right.
2021.
Yes. Everybody wants to think about the horse race.
What you want done.
So the horse race starts in next September of 2022.
Absolutely.
But so much will already be determined, and the groundwork is being laid now. And of course, we have a gubernatorial race that that's just heating up with a very crowded Democratic field for the governor's race here in Maryland that we're starting to pay attention to, and a number of candidates are starting to lay some strong groundwork there. But it's still way too early. We don't know what's going to happen. No one really knows what's going to happen or what's the state of the world will be. I hope if nothing else we've learned over the last 18 months, we don't know. Tomorrow is not promised. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. I know for so many of us, it's been traumatic last 18 months, and there's been so much loss and so much trauma and stress and anxiety and uncertainty. And in so many ways, that's going to continue. So again, I want to beat a dead horse, but they have to remain hopeful and optimistic and keep getting up and doing the work every day, right? And that work starts with, of course, in your home with your family, but then what do you do in your job? What do you do in your community? How are you showing up, right? To the extent that you're capable, how are you showing up for somebody else? And I think we just need more of that. And if we can focus on those little things that we can do around us, it can easily build to the big things, and we can all be, chairs of small business democratic caucuses like yourself, and really be leaders and pillars in our community. But that started out with doing some small things, and that's you've met my dad, that's what he's taught me, and so I try to live that and model that for my family, and then get out in my community and do the small things and help people. So there's a lot of need right around us, right?
Yes, there is.
No matter where you are, there's a lot of need right around us, and try to meet those needs.
Well, let me ask you a question about you just mentioned your dad and your family. And I always like to, as I said in the introduction of you, is just sort of explain to folks the legacy of which you come from. And I'm not saying that you're trying to live on what it is that your dad has done or your other family members have done, but I want to make sure people have an understanding of the background. So, I know that your uncle is Reginald F. Lewis. He was an American businessman, one of the richest African-American men in the 80s, and the first African-American to build $1 billion company through TLC Beatrice International Holdings. Also, one of the things that he's done beyond that was he was able to have this fantastic museum, which was built with his resources, and a lot that people really want to know about the African American Museum that is in Baltimore, that your uncle and your dad currently sit on the board of with other family members, that people can also go to the museum so they can find out a little more about what they're supporting in the community and what they've done in the past. And of course, on screen right now is a fantastic autobiography by your uncle, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And basically is how Reginald Lewis created and built $1 billion empire, which was really kind of amazing. But I've read that book more than once. But the most important thing that I've been able to really ascertain from talking with you and talking with your father and just reading with the autobiography is really just sort of a roadmap of things you need to get done and how people, small businessmen, are multifaceted. We all have families, we all have things that we support in our communities and everything else. And we're not just looking, hey, how can I make my next dollar? No, it's not just about how do you make money. It's about what do you intend to do with those resources? How do you commit your time to do things that are important in your community that are not just about making money? And how do you go ahead and make sure that sort of legacy stays in place? Because after us come our children and our great-grandchildren in the wider community, which, I think that your legacy that you come from has had a pretty good impact. So tell us a little bit about that if I didn't give too much away already.
Well, no, I mean, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, everybody, please go to Amazon and certainly read Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? It's a great autobiography of my uncle's life, and it has inspired me, and it continues to inspire so many. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1993. So there's so many folks who are around my age and in my early 40s and older, even who don't, especially younger, but even older, who don't remember when my uncle did the $1 billion deal back in 1987, and don't understand the significance of what he had accomplished. And so it's definitely been an inspiration. So, my father's not on the board of the museum. And the museum, by the way, is a part of the state of Maryland. It's a state of Maryland institution. My family did give us a significant amount of money towards its building and creation. And thus it's named after my uncle. But the museum is a part of the state of Maryland educational system. And it's so wonderful that every school student from, I think, 1st grade through 12th grade, if you're a public school student in Maryland, there's a curriculum attached to the museum, and every student at some point in their time in grade school will at least visit the museum at least once, right? That's the goal. So really it's an educational institution, again, run by the state of Maryland. I have a couple of my aunts, I believe, remain on the board currently. And so people call me and ask me about the museum and favors. I say, I can't help you. My uncle's name is on it, but I do not run the museum. So I want to be very clear about that. And then I also want to share that my father moved to Arizona, and you'd be so proud. He's been beating the drum. He moved there in March of 2020. He's been out there talking about he's going to turn Arizona blue. And so he's out there, he's held on for November. Right. And also, I went and visited him in May. So you guys are still counting votes out here. What's going on? He just shakes his head. So, you want to move out here, Russell? We're going to keep Arizona blue. I said, well, maybe. I don't know. I might want to. Y'all have a lot of water out here. It's kind of dry, hot. I don't know if I'm going to go to the desert, but he's trying to recruit people to move out there and keep Arizona blue. And I was so grateful through my George Washington University connection to meet a young man named Jevin Hodge. Jevin ran for county commissioner out there and unfortunately lost, but I had the chance to sit with him when I visited, and he said, I'm kind of glad I lost because I'd be out here dealing with this mess of this recount, because the county commissions has to oversee this recount and all the lawsuits and all the rigmarole going on with that fraudulent recount they're doing out there. So he's now running for Congress, so that's a young person. I don't know what's going to happen in his congressional race. Part of it is his calculations around some redistricting that he's done the research and predicts will help make the district more favorable to flip from red to blue. But he is an amazing young man that you're going to want to keep an eye on. Jevin, Jevin Hodge, Hodge. He has an amazing story, and there's no doubt like he'll be senator or governor of Arizona at some point. So keep your eye on him. So just wanted to share that part. But thank you for keeping my uncle's legacy alive, and it's just such a blessing to be a part of it. I continue to learn and grow from it every day. And benefit. And I again hope people will read the autobiography. You can go to reginaldflewis.com as well, and there's some videos, a number of materials there you can read and learn more about his story.
Well, it is an amazing story, especially there's so much talk about startups. And I'll be honest, when I heard about your uncle back in the late 80s, I mean, I graduated, I've been out here a minute, 1980.
Got a few gray hairs.
So, but when I heard about him in the 80s or the 90s, and just reading the specifics, because there's so much they talk about startups and funding small businesses and things of that nature. When people read the strategies and the things that was actually accomplished by him, I think they'll get a lot of benefit from it. It's just the more knowledge, the better. The more you understand how the ancestors and the elders did things, you don't have to make the same mistakes. You can actually benefit from the knowledge that they're already giving you, and that's what I think it's there. But you know what? I want to move on a little more, and Russell, I want to talk a little bit about you've made some trips to abroad to do international business. You work with a number of different athletic organizations. I mean, you've done a lot of different things as a small business person, and you're nowhere near your dad's age. So you've done a lot for a fairly young age, man. So why don't you give us a little more input into some of the other things that you've done, just what you want to talk about, whether it's your company or some of the other business ventures you've done.
Sure. Well, in terms of international work, I had the chance back in 2019 to go to South Africa as part of a business, like a diplomacy mission, to go to South Africa to work with the university system in South Africa. And we had the chance to visit a number of universities and serve on panels to talk about entrepreneurship in technology transfer. And so for those who don't know, technology transfer is when you have universities that have professors and students who create and invent things, intellectual property in a legal term. And then a lot of times the intellectual property will literally sit on a shelf somewhere, on a file somewhere, and no one takes it and makes it into a business that creates opportunities, creates jobs, creates wealth. And in South Africa, there's an extremely high, over 30% unemployment rate, and it's even higher if you're under 35. And so, they're 25 years post-apartheid. There's still a great racial divide. And I had the chance to visit the Apartheid Museum in Johannesburg, and I encourage everyone, if they ever go to South Africa, to go to Johannesburg. Everyone wants to go to Cape Town and go to the beach, and I did that too. But go to Johannesburg and go to the Apartheid Museum, and your Mandela cut was that they were going to get freedom and access to the government and access to, of course, keeping religious institutions and other civic institutions, but also the wealth and the land primarily would continue to stay white and owned white. So even though, I think white folks there are still like less than 20% of the population, they own like over 80% of the land.
That's still the case today?
And still control the banking. And today, I'm talking about today. So you have a lot of issues, and now more recently you've lumped COVID on top of that. So before COVID, I was there. I spent 10 days. We were in Johannesburg, Cape Town, Stellenbosch, and Durban. If you look at a map, you'll see I flew in country. It was a very rigorous trip. We were at the bus, breakfast at 7, on the bus at 7:30. Back for a late night like steak dinner and wine at 9 o'clock, which is lovely. But then it's like sleep fast and get up the next day, and you're in front of people with your shirt and tie on. And you don't want to speak to the Americans, but it was so beautiful. The people there are so amazing and so brilliant. And it's such a dynamic country, and it's really a gateway to the whole part of Southern Africa. There's over 50 countries on the continent, and you realize how vast and how dynamic the continent is, and how much of the future of this planet really, particularly I think in this century and beyond, will rest on the fate of what happens on the continent of Africa, right? So there's just so much opportunity there. When COVID, I was in the process of applying for Fulbright, where I was actually going to go back and I was trying to figure out how to bring my family with me. I was going to go for about 6 weeks and go and continue to do this work more full-time, hands-on through a Fulbright grant. Unfortunately, with COVID hit, I just stopped. I haven't gone back to my application, I don't think, since. So I'm hoping that next year, if not in 2023, I'll get a chance to return. But in this virtual format, I've still been able to be blessed to be asked to speak at the entrepreneurship conference they had virtually back in September, and a church invited me to come speak for 20 minutes to share my story with them virtually. We recorded that a few months ago. So I still maintain these wonderful relationships, and the work still continues. And we're hoping to kick off a virtual incubator very soon, if not this fall, hopefully by the first part of next year, that will work out of one of the universities based in Cape Town. And really look to support primarily Black South African businesses coming out of the universities using the IP, and hopefully, job opportunities, businesses that can create jobs and opportunities which the country desperately needs, right?
So how will that work? Are you looking to have small businesses or businesses here to sort of work with these African startup companies?
Certainly. So that's certainly a part of it, where having a virtual incubator allows for us to transfer knowledge. South Africa is an extremely risk-averse society. I learned that being there. So to do the stuff that my uncle did, to do the stuff that I've attempted to do in raising millions of dollars and buying businesses and doing all this entrepreneurial activity is very foreign to them. It's a very risk-averse society, right? It's very, in some ways, because the society is fragile, but that's just really part of the culture, right? So part of it is having that mentorship. And I think having mentorship from folks that look like us is going to be very valuable as well, to be able to provide that mentorship and that support. So that's certainly going to be part of it. There's also a huge gap in terms of early stage capital. There's really not a lot of early stage capital. It's a very well-developed private equity market. So if you so if people don't understand finance, if you have a business that has 40 employees and you're making, a few $1 million a year, there's money for you to grow. There's private equity money at that when you get to that stage. But that seed, that startup, that venture, what we would call in America venture money, doesn't really exist white or Black in South Africa as we understand it here. What they call venture here is almost like private equity. It's very conservative. So there's a gap, but investments are small. I saw businesses that I thought had potential that just needed 10,000 US. And I think it's right now the rand is about 16 to 1 last I looked. So the currency fluctuates, but 5 or 10,000 US can go a long way to supporting an entrepreneur. And if, of course, you have them part of the incubator where they're getting coaching, they're getting training, they're getting mentorship, they're getting support for product development and business operations. Again, hopefully you'll have enough hits that you'll actually see some scaling and some growth and really create an ecosystem. And I believe very strongly, this market narrative. And
Well,
so
let me
how do
ask
we
you a
have
question.
the success that we can report back to the townships, to the students at university, that we can have more entrepreneurs and fund more businesses?
Well, you said something to me that I found to be very interesting, because you just said that $10,000, which is not a insignificant amount of money.
No, not at all. Not just
It's a
by American
considerable amount of money. But you're saying it goes a long way in venture capital for companies that need to start to have some sort of support. So you could actually have a fund of $50,000 and really work with some pretty notable, or choose some good startup companies to really sort of support over there and try to get resources from other companies. Is there a lot of U.S. companies or U.S. individuals actually looking to do that sort of thing? Even as a small business, heck, I mean, I could piece together $10,000 and help out some
companies. Not a whole lot in South Africa, at least that I'm aware of. And I'll just say, don't want to elaborate too much. There's not a whole lot to elaborate on just yet, but I'm part of ongoing conversations about exactly how to do that, how to raise capital here, support businesses on the continent, particularly in South Africa.
Well, I think I think a lot of folks are seeing just all the 55 or so countries in Africa. Africa land mass is what, 3 times the size of the United States,
right?
And that's a lot of land mass. So, and they have the largest population, youngest population, growing at over a couple of billion. So we're talking a whole lot of customers and a whole lot of resources.
They all have cell phones. They're all coming in. A lot of them are coming into the middle class. Just sitting there and watching TV, watching the commercials is very fascinating. Right. And see the image of how they're trying to portray the middle class life through the advertising and what they're selling and what's on the news was very fascinating. So again, it was a very immersive experience. Well, I didn't go on vacation, certainly.
So if you were going to give, as a small business person and a Democrat, advice or sort of advise or push some of the ideals coming out of the party and out of the people that support the Democratic Party and small business, what are some of the things you might advise them to do internationally, whether, since we're talking about Africa, or just in general, that you think might be good ideas or philosophies that we need to get behind to sort of push our elected folks to do on a state and federal level?
Well, again, I think I'm a big fan of tech transfer, and we have so many states, not only Virginia, there's a number of wonderful universities. What is happening with the intellectual property that's existing there? Is there really access? Is there equal access in support for our HBCUs in the state? I know in Virginia, my uncle's alma mater, Virginia State, is a state institution. I know they're doing some great work at the business school there that's named after him. But is there state level funding and support for entrepreneurship, for early stage businesses, and for intellectual property that's coming out? And I saw when I was in South Africa, I saw that stuff that was in the biotech, healthcare field. I saw stuff in agriculture. I saw stuff in energy, clean water. I mean, there was some software as a service stuff, but I think there's opportunity. There was a lot of similarities in terms of what are the solutions that are going to meet the critical needs of this time, right? We see what's happening with climate change. Who's finding a solution to deal with water insecurity, with food insecurity, with forest fires, right? So, or fighting the next SARS-CoV-19 virus, or the next SARS-CoV virus, right? So I'm just wondering, are our state governments at that local level investing in our universities, investing in our young people to spur more of this creativity, and even supporting people from our engineering schools and our medical schools? Hey, before you go, start your own practice or go work for this construction company, have you thought about starting a business that could, and here's some revolutionary IP that just needs the right entrepreneur, the right person to take it forward. So I know, I've seen evidence, at least in Virginia and in Maryland, that we're starting to build some of that pipeline. We're starting to have that infrastructure, and that ecosystem is the word, but it's still a ways to go. And in that sense, there isn't a whole lot of difference from South Africa to here, because the critical needs are the same. We all need food, we all need water, we all need clean air, right? We all need job opportunity. So there's a lot of fundamentals that are very much the same. And I'll definitely want to emphasize, it wasn't these brilliant, rich Americans going to these poor Africans. That was not this trip I was on. I learned just as much on this trip, if not more, than I was able to communicate and share. I'm fairly confident. There's a lot of brilliant people there, and it's a matter of how can we meld and work together to solve the same problems we all as humans on this earth have.
Well, it sounds as though there needs to be some sort of think tank between small business people here in the United States and possibly with partners in Africa, where we could talk about some of the concerns that you mentioned. Because when I look at most of the things I really see happening from here, either it's from a federal level with the State Department or AID, but how much private sector, like just common people or common small business owners like yourself, like myself, like Aaron, where you may say, well, hey, let's do a quarterly think tank with opportunities, and then try to maybe look at regionally around the areas in Africa, or working with the Africa free trade thing that's going on, or the Africa Union, to sort of maybe target some of these opportunities, or at least introduce some of the ideas that you've talked about. I'm not trying to put another task on your book, but it seems to me that if nothing else, we could do a VADSBC live show on this topic and just sort of invite some folks in to talk. You know, I mean, it sort of helps get the ball moving, just moving it down the field and giving it more recognition and more visibility.
Well, as I continue to have my conversations, I'll certainly keep that in mind. But one thing that was certainly impressed upon me in my spirit when I left South Africa was that this is a long game. So, nothing happens fast. And I want to have the utmost respect for my colleagues and friends in South Africa and for that culture, which in many ways it does not move as quickly as the culture we have here. And so, and of course, you know, we have, you know, the blessing of the vaccine here, and we take that for granted. I was on a phone call a couple months ago and had to almost apologize. I started talking about, I'm about to go get my second shot, and I just had the other lady say, well, you know, I'm happy for you, but they're saying healthcare workers might get it next month, but no one believes it. And we don't know when we're going to get our shot. I'm an educator, administrator here at the university. And I almost feel like I had to apologize. I just want to sink through the floor and then realize, and I have to remind my wife and remind people I talk to, we're here in America complaining about COVID. We can't get tunnel vision. This is a global problem.
Yes.
It's going to continue to impact us. It's going to continue to impact the poor brown folks, particularly in the southern hemisphere of this globe, until we can get the vaccine distributed, we can totally get this thing under control, if not figure out how to eradicate it. And so we have to keep that in mind as the forefront. But nonetheless, this conversation is just as important. The biggest industry in South Africa, one of the biggest, is tourism. And guess what? Now, if you can get to South Africa, you'll never get a safari any cheaper. And I've had a friend who actually just told me that I met with, who was able to come visit the States. His wife's from the States. He's a Dutch, but has lived in South Africa most of his life. And he was like, yeah, safari's cheap now. I can actually, even if he works for a nonprofit, he's like, I can even afford to go now. And so we have to keep this global perspective, even as small business owners, right? We have to keep a global perspective. What's happening? How is it impacting things? And some of us may offshore virtual assistants and different aspects of the software and the technology we use. We have to really keep a global perspective on what the impact is, not only to protect ourselves, but also what can we learn and understand. And that's what you're talking about, Marcus. How can we have that exchange? And so I'm hoping, if nothing else, in the coming year, as my conversations continue to happen with South Africa, that whether this is virtual incubator or some other mechanism, that there'll be a more consistent way to have a fruitful exchange. I think your idea is a brilliant one.
I think that, and that's it, Russell, because we've had people come on the VADSBC live show and really bring up some great topics. We had Farhan Hamid on for our debut show, and he was talking about the legislation that was happening in Virginia, where they're trying to make sure 42% of all acquisition dollars get spent with small business. There's follow-up that needs to happen to that. That's why I brought that up. We had another guy come on, and he was really just talking about Preacher Moss, who was a comic and entertainer, really talking about how the entertainment industry was affected by small business. Some of the things that small business folks can do, we needed to follow up on that. And then a guy talking about crypto assets or cryptocurrency.
I saw that
about Bitcoin, and he really is a very knowledgeable guy, and is really kind of talked about small business about that. And now here you are talking about this thing. And one of the things is I'm looking at the fourth show and things that we need to go back and follow up on is we'd like to have you back again, like to be able to follow up with you from this and maybe have a call to action or an action item that we can say that we actually did and things that we're continuing to do. And we're here for the long game because I believe in the African proverb, if you want to go quickly, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, go with a group.
There you go.
So that's how I believe things get done. But Russell, let me turn it back over to you, sir.
No, I'm a fifth generation entrepreneur, so I'm into going far. Nothing quick, right?
Yeah.
So it's just been great to be able to be with you and Aaron tonight to have this conversation. And I'd love to come back and continue it and find out what can we do, how can we put some things into action and for the state of Virginia and for this whole Mid-Atlantic region and throughout the country and throughout into over to South Africa and anywhere else where we can get plugged in and exchange ideas and maybe even do exchange some commerce, right? That's which is always fun. So absolutely.
That's what's important to get out of these conversations, to follow up with things and make some things happen. And I have to also give my good friend here, Russell, his flowers here. Aaron is one of the inspirations for me to do this. I saw that Russell getting out there on media, putting his audio stuff out there and putting his books out there. And I said, man, Russell is just kind of dropping stuff everywhere, man. This guy is getting it done.
Well, I haven't plugged anything yet. Let me know when it's time. We've enjoyed this conversation so much. So, but thank you. It's beautiful what you've been able to do here, this setup, and I hope you see how it brings value when you're able to do it.
Oh yeah, it has brought a lot of unexpected value from a lot of different corners. And you know what we've also figured out, Russell, and and this is also comes from working with a group, and you included in that, is that it's kind of surprising. It's not about the numbers,
right?
Because the people who come back to me later, it's really about the content. Because once we get the content out there, we can do different things with the content. But actually, the creation of the content is what's important, and to hear the diversity of opinions that you're just not getting out there. So that's what I've found to be really the most significant portion of this. And everyone who has decided to take a peek in at this, we're saying the same thing, and we're glad to have it. So
and you'll find 6 months from now, a year from now, these conversations you're having will be relevant. You'll want to retweet it, repost it, re-email it, right? And that's part of it too. Is that it can be evergreen and live on forever, these conversations in this moment in time. It's, we're documenting, right? Which is
exactly. We're documenting that history. And one of the things I wanted to ask you before we go, I know I did talk about HR 1 and HR 4, which is for the people, like HR 1, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and we talk about the George Floyd Act. We also wanted to just sort of maybe get your opinions on what's your thoughts on the effect of small business by the large amount of collegiate debt that's out there on students and parents. A lot of people think it's just the students, but the students, these are parent plus loans. Parents are signing these loans at 50 plus years old to send their kids to college and things of that nature. Have you found that this has been more of a concern with young small business entrepreneurs that are still dealing with college debt? I know I asked you a question with 2 minutes left in the show, but I'm throwing that at you anyway.
It's a great question. I will say certainly I have friends who've waited till later in life because of student debt to start their side hustle. Right, they went into their careers and said, but they were certainly very much entrepreneurial people, and have waited to start their side hustle with the hope that perhaps that they could figure out some combination of small business entrepreneurial activity that might allow them to leave their day job. Right.
Yeah.
And so to that extent, and of course, you hear the stories about some of our peers who are not of color, who did not have college debt, who have come from wealthy backgrounds, who have not only have runway to be entrepreneurial, but also have family who will support them in investing in their startup.
Exactly.
I have anecdotal stories of folks who've had that blessing in their family, right? But those folks didn't look like us, and so the college debt situation certainly inhibits a lot of economic activity, as we know. And a part of it is certainly small businesses. And I can't imagine if I was a parent as a small business owner and then had to sign a loan for my child to go to college. especially if you're in the right now in the restaurant industry or any industry that was impacted by COVID. There was a barbecue shop not far from me. I hadn't been past it in a while. I went over there and it closed up. I happened to drive past and it's closed. It looks like they might still be doing some carry out, but there was no activity.
Yeah.
A lovely husband and wife couple who ran it and was profiled in the Washington Post, but they're closed. And so I can only imagine for so many of us who've now lost their businesses or had their businesses severely impacted by COVID, and whether if they got the PPP loans and if that was enough to bridge them, but they also have to support their children.
Right.
It's certainly an issue. It's certainly something I hope President Biden and our congressional leadership will address. I know there hasn't been much talk about it in the recent months, and that needs to be addressed, and I hope will be.
Well, it will be. And Russell, I just want to take the time to say thank you. And on that last note, we're going to come back and revisit those things and all those things we talked about. I appreciate you giving us time. But right now, we've come to the end of the hour. We got to end it with a little bit of our. Oh, there it is. We just want to let you guys know. Thank you for being on the VADSBC show live. We'll be back next week, Woke Wednesdays, with the VADSBC live show. Aaron, you got any party words for us?
Check me out,
Bob.
JumlaNetwork.com.
Bob, because Bob will sue us if we use too much. But you got any kind of words for us?
Hey, Russell, let us know how people can get in touch with you in the future.
Sure. I am at Russell Fugett across social media. You can learn a little bit more about my strategic consulting and training business at JumlaNetwork.com, JumlaNetwork.com. And if you search the last name Fugett, in the next few weeks, you're going to see a number of podcasts with me in them. And I'll just leave it at that. I'm coming back strong with some content, focusing on audio the rest of this year. And I'm going to be hosting 2 shows that will focus on other folks. And then I'm going to have a couple of my own where I'll be doing my own thing. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It has been great having you. 2 things that stood out that I heard you say, and that was knowledge transfer and understanding the global impacts. I think when we bring you back on, I will probably pick up there, because those are 2 key components that I believe all business owners should be tapped into. And just really understanding, that knowledge transfer, what that looks like, how we can do that from where we sit right now, and also understanding those global impacts. So
we're not alone. We're not alone. Even though we're struggling as small businesses, we're having difficult. We're not alone. There's people in South Africa dealing with very similar challenges. There's people down the street. So we got to stick together, learn how to work together, coordinate, collaborate, and rise together. So thank you for that, Aaron. I look forward to that conversation.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it.
Great connecting with you. All right, Mark. Thank you.
We'll see you next time around. Thank you for being on, Russ.
Anytime.
All right.